Marcus Johnson sat behind the wheel of his obsidian black sedan, his mind on nothing more dangerous than the taste of the dinner he planned to reheat once he made it home, his hands steady on the wheel, both open on the leather as if he'd trained himself for this moment 1,000 times before, a calm anticipation etched into the lines of his face, though he did not yet know the night was about to ask him to do something heavier. The evening slid across the suburb like the car glided past rows of houses, each porch lit with a familiar small-town rhythm of evening routines, a dog barking here, children dragging their bikes off the sidewalk there, sprinklers coughing thin rainbows into manicured lawns. And though Marcus noticed none of it in detail, he absorbed a feeling of belonging, of community, of familiarity, until the flash of headlights in his mirror broke it like a bottle dropped on tile. He spotted a patrol car lurking at the edge of the street, half-shadowed beneath an oak tree, its engine alive with patient hunger, and the moment his sedan rolled by the predator stirred, red and blue lights pulsing into existence, siren chirping twice with the authority of a hunter declaring its claim. He pulled smoothly to the curb, his turn signal ticking like a metronome, his body moving as if rehearsed, window lowered halfway, radio silenced, hands resting high on the wheel where they could be seen, his every movement the choreography of survival. Marcus's chest tightened not out of guilt, but out of the worn-out recognition that came each time this ritual unfolded. Officer Bradley emerged from the patrol car with a swagger that could be felt even from 20 feet away. His flashlight, already drawn though twilight, had not yet seeded the darkness, his jaw jutting forward with the arrogance of man who believed the badge on his chest placed him above every life it hovered over. His first words came out of his mouth with casual disdain as he approached slowly and leaned into the open window. He spoke quickly, evening, and his tone suggested that the evening was solely his. "Good evening, officer," Marcus replied, even respectful, the weight of his voice calm. "You know why I pulled you over?" The officer asked, with a smirk on his face, but Marcus only slightly shook his head. "No, sir." "You sure about that?" Bradley pressed, the flashlight beam crawling over Marcus's face, hands, and chest as if looking for a crime that might materialize if he looked hard enough. "I'm sure," Marcus said again in a steady voice. The flashlight wandered the car, touching the dashboard, the neat interior, the leather seats, every corner bathed in scrutiny until it came back to Marcus's face. "License, registration, proof of insurance," Bradley demanded, clicking his tongue between words like punctuation. "I'm going to reach into my jacket for my wallet, then the glove compartment for the documents." Marcus narrated his actions aloud in a measured voice. Bradley chuckled at that, a sound laced with mockery. "Are you an actor or what?" "All of that talk. It keeps us both safe," Marcus said. Bradley leaned back and smirked. "Move forward. Slow." Marcus did as he said he would. Bradley received his registration and insurance cards from the glove box like fragile artifacts, placed them on the dashboard, and pinching them between his fingers out of concern that they might soil him, Marcus took his wallet out carefully. The officer studied the license, then Marcus, then back to the license. "Marcus Johnson," he muttered. "Is this your auto?" "Yes." Bradley's flashlight gleamed across the dashboard again, lingering on the luxury finishes. Nice ride. People like you rarely arrive in cars like this." Marcus remained still, his voice level. "I live nearby. You say? Do you now?" Bradley squinted as he leaned in closer. "Which street?" "Maple." "We're on Maple," Marcus replied. "I know." The policeman sneered. "Where did you steal it?" Marcus exhaled, the sound steady. "I did not." Bradley extended his grin, masking his cruel face. "Step out of the vehicle." After taking a moment to consider potential dangers, Marcus carefully pushed the door open and ascended to his full height in his tailored suit. The air outside was heavy with the scent of hot asphalt and cut grass, the streetlights casting halos that turned the scene theatrical. Bradley circled him, eyes sharp with a predator's humor, with hands on the roof. Marcus gave in, his body a picture control, with his palms resting on the warm metal of the car. "Probable cause?" he inquired softly. Bradley chuckled. "Probably because you're making me nervous," she said. Marcus was patted down by his hands, which moved too roughly, tapping at pockets and pressing along seams. His fingers also touched the inside of Marcus's jacket, where something small and heavy pressed against his ribs. With a mocking tone in his voice, Bradley felt it. "What ya got there?" Marcus replied evenly. "My wallet. A pen." The badge's weight burning like fire against his side forced him to stop. "A what?" Bradley prodded. "Nothing that concerns you," Marcus said. The officer leaned closer, breath hot, smirk wider. "I'm the focus of everything, partner. At the moment, I am the law." Across the street, an elderly woman stepped onto her porch, watering can in hand, her eyes narrowing at the spectacle. "Officer," she called out, her voice brittle but firm, "is everything all right?" Bradley didn't even look at her. "Ma'am, this is for the police," he said. She pressed. "I've seen him. He lives here. He's respectful." Bradley laughed in a cruel way. "Respectful does not imply legality." Marcus turned his head slightly, murmuring, "Respectful often means legal," the word soft but edged with steel. Bradley's grin faltered, but he recovered, circling back. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." Despite Marcus's calm demeanor, each word carried the weight of history. "On what grounds?" "Suspicion. Obstruction. Take your pick." The officer dangled the cuffs, the clink of metal sharp in the night. Marcus inhaled slowly, his eyes fixed on the woman across the street, then the boys who had stopped on their bikes to watch, then back to Bradley's sneer. He raised his hand slightly from the hood and held his palm open as if to warn. Marcus advised, "Stop." Bradley froze, instinct obeying command before pride caught up, his jaw tightening. "Don't make me repeat myself," Bradley hissed. Marcus's eyes didn't blink. "Officer, you're writing your own complaint." The silence hung heavy, streetlights buzzing overhead, until Bradley sneered again. "Do you think you're unique?" Marcus's reply came with a weight Bradley could not see, but would soon feel. "Call your supervisor." Bradley's harsh, loud laugh bounced off the parked cars like broken glass. His shoulders squared as if mocking the very idea of accountability. And yet something in his eyes flickered, a stutter in his certainty that Marcus caught like a hawk spotting the tremor of a mouse in the grass. The officer pressed on, desperate to fill the silence, desperate to assert control. "You think you can tell me how to do my job, huh? You think just 'cause you talk all smooth I'm supposed to snap my fingers and salute? Marcus, you're just another mouth on the side of the road, and I'll stop talking to you if I want to." His voice rose as if to remind himself he still had the upper hand, and Marcus, still calm, still measured, repeated the command once more. "Call your supervisor." The word seemed to hang like iron in the humid air, and even the elderly woman on the porch folded her arms tighter across her chest, her eyes sharp with the fire of memory, of times she'd seen this play out badly before. "You keep pushing me. You're going to regret it," Bradley said as he drew closer, their eyes just inches apart. "The regret is already yours, officer," said Marcus in a voice that was low and almost gentle. The teens down the block whispered each other, one clutching his handlebars until his knuckles went white, the other nervously glancing at the phone he dared not raise again, their bikes half hidden in the shadow of a tree. Caught between fear and awe, Bradley snapped his hand up, waving the cuffs like a talisman. "Enough games. Hands behind your back now." Marcus didn't move, his breath steady, his eyes unblinking, the calm of a man who had weathered storms and knew the precise moment to reveal the lightning he carried within. He spoke slowly, each syllable a deliberate stone. "If you put those on me, your career ends tonight." Bradley's laugh cracked again, but it carried a shrill edge now. "My career? You some kind of judge? You some politician's cousin?" Marcus tilted his head just slightly, the streetlight catching the edge of his cheekbone, his suit still immaculate despite the heat pressing against him. "Closer than you think." Bradley hesitated, then lunged forward, seizing Marcus's wrist roughly, jerking it up as if trying to force the narrative back into control. But Marcus didn't resist, didn't flinch. He simply said, clear and calm, "You will regret this choice." Bradley sneered, yanking harder, but his eyes darted to the porch where the woman had stepped down another stair, her voice rising now. "Leave that man be. Nothing has happened to him." Bradley yelled, "Get back inside before I sight you," over his shoulder. But her voice cut back, sharp as a whip. "You won't dare." And the neighborhood had shifted, the stage growing larger with each porch light flicking on, with each curtain twitch, with each witness adding weight to Marcus's side of the scale. Bradley turned back, his chest heaving, and Marcus used a pause, the smallest crack of time, to lift his hand toward his jacket with slow precision. "What the hell are you doing?" Marcus' voice was unwavering. "However, you told him to prove it, so I will." Bradley barked as his hand brushed the butt of his holstered gun. "Keep your hand off your weapon and watch carefully." Bradley froze, caught in the strange authority of the moment, and Marcus pulled out the badge from his inner jacket pocket with 2 deliberate fingers. It was a gold sunburst with the words "Internal Affairs," which fell like thunder into the tense silence. The streetlights engulfed Marcus in a halo of authority, while Bradley's face lost color, and his jaw slackened as the realization roared through him. The world seemed to stop, even the crickets. The porch woman gasped audibly, clutching her chest, whispering, "Lord have mercy." The boys on their bikes exchanged wide-eyed looks, one mouthing the words on the badge in reverence, "Internal Affairs," and Bradley stumbled back a half-step, the cuffs clinking in his trembling hand. His smirk evaporated, his voice stammering, This is a joke." Bradley had never heard Marcus say, "This is no joke, Officer Bradley," as he slowly stepped forward with his badge still raised. "You have been humiliating an innocent man in public, violating procedure, and abusing your authority. Naturally, the irony is that I am the one who conducts such an investigation into misconduct. You couldn't have chosen worse tonight." Bradley swallowed hard, sweat breaking across his forehead despite the evening cool, his arrogance crumbling into fear. I didn't know. I was just what?" Marcus interrupted, his voice slicing through Bradley's excuses. "Just profiling? Just harassing? Just demeaning a citizen because of the color of his skin? Tell me, which part of your training covers that?" Bradley's lips moved soundlessly, his words choking in his throat, and Marcus lowered the badge slowly but kept it visible, his eyes never leaving the officer's. "You've made yourself look bad. You've embarrassed your badge. And worse, you've endangered the very trust the community is supposed to have in you." With her watering can abandon and her eyes blazing with vindication, the porch lady stepped fully onto the sidewalk. "I knew it. I knew you were wrong to treat him like that." The neighborhood was fully awake now, silhouettes in windows, heads peeking around doors, and Bradley, realizing the circle of witnesses had tightened, fumbled for words. "Look, Mr. Officer, sir, I was just doing my job. You know how it is out here." "No." Marcus cut him off sharply. "I know exactly how it is out here, and it stops tonight." Bradley's body sagged under the weight of his failure, his fingers loosening on the cuffs until they clattered to the pavement. Ringing out like the sound of chains dropped at last. The cuffs at the pavement with metallic clatter that echoed across the block, and for a beat the entire street held its breath. The night itself pausing to decide which way this story would tilt, and Marcus, still holding the badge steady in his hand, stepped forward with a kind of deliberate composure that transformed the air around him, every inch of him radiating authority now rather than restraint, his voice carrying like a bell through the quiet suburb. "Officer Bradley, you will stand down immediately, and you will await a supervisor on this scene, because your conduct tonight is a textbook example of abuse of authority, racial profiling, and violation of departmental procedure." The officer's jaw trembled, his bravado unraveling like thread pulled too fast from a cheap suit, and he stumbled over his own defense. "I didn't. This isn't what it looks like. I thought." But Marcus cut through him like a scalpel. "You thought wrong, and worse than wrong. You acted on prejudice. You laughed at me. You humiliated me in front of witnesses. You tried to invent charges when none existed. And you laid hands on me without probable cause. Tell me, officer, how many times have you pulled this stunt on people who didn't have a badge to protect them? How many lives have you scarred?" Bradley opened his mouth, but the words caught, his throat dry, his face now glistening with sweat under the unforgiving streetlight. The elderly woman moved closer from across the street, raising her voice like a chorus. "He's right. You stopped our boys and harassed them for no reason. I've seen." Since Marcus had thrown the first stone, neighbors felt empowered, and a mumble of agreement echoed from porches and windows. Bradley turned in a slow, panicked circle, his authority dissolving with every glance he caught, the power he once wielded evaporating under the gaze of those he had once cowed into silence. With his badge still in his hand, Marcus calmly picked up his phone and dialed a number, clearly saying, "This is Marcus Johnson, Internal Affairs," into the receiver. "I need Captain Reyes dispatched immediately to my location. Yes, misconduct by officers is ongoing. Numerous witnesses. I will wait, yes." He ended the call and slid the phone into his pocket, his eyes never leaving Bradley, whose chest rose and fell in rapid bursts, his breast shallow, his arrogance leaking out him in uneven gasps. "You called Reyes?" Bradley stammered, his voice cracking like old wood. You can't. Can't what?" Marcus asked, stepping closer, his presence towering though he hadn't raised his voice. "Hold you accountable? Shine a light on your corruption? You think your uniform makes you untouchable, but tonight you learn that the law is bigger than your ego, Bradley." The officer's useless hand remained near his belt, twitching as a fictitious memory of power faded. Instead of reaching for his weapon, one of the boys on the bikes whispered, awestruck, "He's done for," and his friend nodded solemnly, "Done." The old woman crossed her arms, her chin high, her voice now calm but firm. About time somebody held him accountable. Minutes stretched, the neighborhood swelling with quiet anticipation, and then the growl of another patrol car's engine rolled up the street, headlights slicing through the darkness, red and blue lights slowing to a stop. As Captain Reyes saw Marcus, calm and unshaken, with his badge still in his hand, Bradley, pale and sweating, and the group of neighbors watching with quiet fury, his expression immediately sharpened as he emerged taller, broader, and wearing a crisp uniform. "What the hell is going on here?" Reyes demanded, his voice thunder in the night. Bradley stammered, "Captain, I thought he was suspicious. Suspicious?" Reyes snapped, turning his head toward the trembling officer like a hammer. "Suspicious of what? A man driving from work to home? You call for backup for this." Marcus stepped in smoothly, his tone clipped but respectful. "Captain Reyes, I didn't call him. I called you. I identified myself as Internal Affairs after Officer Bradley escalated a baseless stop into harassment and attempted unlawful detainment. He mocked me. He laid hands on me, and he attempted to cuff me without cause. Multiple witnesses observed everything." Reyes's eyes widened as Marcus extended the badge for him to see, the gold catching patrol lights with undeniable truth. "Johnson," Reyes muttered, recognition dawning, his voice tightening with both surprise and respect. "I've heard of you. You've made a lot of dirty cops very nervous." Marcus allowed the faintest curl of a smile to touch his lips, though it did not reach his eyes. "Seems I found another one tonight." Bradley's mouth opened, but Reyes silenced him with a single raised hand. "Don't. Not one word." The neighbors stirred, a murmur of vindication rolling like distant thunder. The old woman stepped closer still, her hand brushing Marcus's sleeve lightly, reverently. "Thank you, son. Thank you for showing him we're not powerless." Before returning to the issue at hand, Marcus dipped his head, his gaze softening for a moment. Reyes gestured sharply to Bradley. "Turn in your weapon. Now." Bradley froze, the order a death sentence, and stammered, Captain, please, it was just a misunderstanding. Weapon. Now." There was no way around Reyes' tone. The surrender was complete when Bradley's trembling hand unclipped the holster, and his body sagged under the weight of his shame as he handed over his service weapon. Reyes took it, holstered it on his own belt, then fixed Bradley with a stare that could have carved stone. "You're suspended effective immediately. The investigation will be handled by Internal Affairs. Johnson," he turned back, respecting his voice now, "I'll personally see that your report lands on the chief's desk before morning." The weight of justice settled like a gavel between them with Marcus' curt nod and lowering of his badge. Bradley's lips were trembling and his knees appeared to be weakening as he looked from Marcus to Reyes to the crowd, each face a reflection of his fall. He almost whispered, "Please, I didn't mean," but Marcus stopped him with a single firm and decisive word. "Enough." The silence that followed was thick, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with the quiet power of accountability, of a community that had witnessed truth laid bare, of a predator revealed as coward in the light. The street settled into a strange quiet as Bradley stood hollow and exposed, his weapon surrendered, his cuffs on the ground like the fragments of a broken crown, and Captain Reyes kept his gaze locked on him while Marcus, badge still gleaming faintly in his hand, stepped closer not with triumph but with the gravity of a man carrying the weight of every unseen victim this officer had left in his wake, his voice low but cutting through the night like a razor. "Do you feel small now, Officer Bradley? Because this is how every man, woman, and child you pulled over unjustly has felt, every person you mocked, every driver you demeaned, every teenager you frightened for no reason but your prejudice. Tonight you tasted that mirror, and you don't like the reflection." The officer who once strutted with arrogance now shuffled with the hesitancy of a man stripped bare, the whisper of his boots on the asphalt sounding more like retreat than authority. Bradley's shame drowned his words, and his shoulders slumped as Reyes barked orders for another unit to transport him back to the station for processing. Neighbors stepped further from their porches now, voices buzzing, the old woman with the watering can lifting her chin, pride and vindication etched deep into her lined face. "We've waited years for someone to put him in his place," she declared, and others murmured agreement. The boys on the bikes watching in wide-eyed silence, learning in real time that bullies, even those draped in badges, could be brought to heel. Marcus lowered his badge at last, sliding it back into the inner pocket of his suit, but the aura of authority did not fade. If anything, it grew heavier, because his control had never come from the badge alone but from the calm fire in his soul, the discipline to stand firm without breaking. He exhaled once, letting the tension of the confrontation drain, and for the first time since the flashing lights had shattered his peace, he allowed himself to picture home again, the bowl for keys on the table, the comfort of silence, the simple humanity of his own space untouched by the theater of prejudice. Captain Reyes approached him, voice softer now, carrying respect. "Johnson, you handled that with more strength than most men could. I'll file everything, but if you want, you can write the report yourself. Make sure nothing gets lost in translation." Marcus nodded slightly, his gaze drifting to the gathering of neighbors, their expectant eyes searching his face for closure. He turned back to Bradley, who now sat in the back of the newly arrived patrol car, head hanging low, no smirk left, no laughter, just a husk of fear. Marcus addressed him one final time, words that would carve themselves into Bradley's memory forever. "Power without respect is nothing but a costume, and tonight yours was torn away. Maybe you'll learn. You might not. But either way, your days of hiding behind that badge are done." Bradley's head sagged lower, unable to answer, and the door of the patrol car shut with a heavy finality, the sound like the end of an era. Marcus turned to the crowd, offering not a speech but quiet assurance. "This isn't about me. It's about making sure you never have to worry about the people who have sworn to protect you. Remember this night, not for the badge I carry, but for the truth it revealed." The old woman wiped a tear from her cheek, her voice breaking yet strong. "Bless you, son." And Marcus inclined his head gently before walking back to the sedan, each step slow, deliberate, every eye following him. He opened the driver's door, sat down, and let his hands rest for a moment on the wheel, the leather cool now beneath his palms. As Reyes coordinated the situation, the lights behind him began to dim, neighbors began to murmur relief as they returned to their homes, and the boys on bikes lingered the longest, whispering to each other about what they had just witnessed, how one man's quiet strength had demolished arrogance in front of everyone. Marcus started the engine with a steady hum and looked in the mirror once more, not at Bradley or patrol cars, but at the elderly woman who raised her hand in a small gesture of appreciation. After giving a retort with a nod, he slowly walked away from the curb, leaving the lesson imprinted on the hearts of everyone who had watched as the night faded away like a curtain on a stage. The drive home was quiet, the streets darker now, crickets singing in chorus as if nature itself had resumed its rhythm after the storm. And when Marcus finally pulled into his driveway and stepped inside, he placed his keys gently into the bowl on the table, staring at them for a long moment as the echoes of the night lingered in his bones. He loosened his tie, removed his jacket, and touched the inner pocket where the badge had rested, feeling its weight not as a shield but as a promise that justice, though often delayed, could still prevail when met with courage. He sat in the dim glow of his living room, the photograph of his academy days staring back at him, and he whispered to himself not with pride but with resolve, "Power is nothing without respect." Even though the neighborhood had continued to grow, every window, every porch, and the whispered lessons that parents would teach their children kept a memory of what had happened alive. This served as a reminder that arrogance can be humbled, that prejudice can be exposed, and that sometimes the quiet strength of one man can shift the weight of an entire community.